Hey guys, welcome back to the Tough Love Podcast with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's guest, Alex Armiento, General Manager of Lifetime Fitness, one of the hottest gyms to hit Monmouth County in a very long time. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me.
You know, I was blown away talking with you yesterday, and I love background in my guys to hear your story because I assumed you were groomed in this business, and it gave me a 180 when I heard your background. Give me a little background on how you landed at Villanova and then the shift that went on.
Yeah, so going to school, I went to Villanova University, business degree. I was very fortunate to get into their business school. It was top 5 in the country when I was there. Kind of fell into that. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but figured maybe I'll go into finance, marketing. I think it's hard to know at that age what your passion really is. So for me, it was where can I get the best job, right, coming out of school. So graduated with my degree, started working at a marketing agency right away as a project manager, worked my way up to an account manager, jumped around to a few agencies. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I just woke up one day and I was like, this life is not for me. It was a typical 9 to 5, 9 to 6, sitting behind a desk. I was 24, 25 years old and I already felt like I was like dying. A small piece of me was dying. So I didn't tell my parents. I really didn't tell anyone. I just kind of showed up that day and I put in my 2 weeks with no real backup plan at the time. And for me, looking back, I don't regret that because I'm the type of person where I kind of need something to push me to step out of my comfort zone. And I knew if I just left that job, it would force me to figure it out a little bit. So from there, I took a step back and decided what I wanted to do, where are my passions. And health and fitness and sports was always like my main passion, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what kind of got me into this career path. And I started as a personal trainer.
Tell me that. Yeah. That's one thing I want to draw to our audience is that's the quick story, right? You're telling me if we're in corporate setting.
Yeah.
But it had been a grind to go from a big paycheck to break it apart and kind of do piecework to fill in the gaps. What was that like? Because I had to be able to live in the pain.
You have no idea, man. I don't know if I could do it again. That's how rough it was at times, looking back, how much effort and uncertainty I had at that time. But I took a step back. I decided I wanted to be a trainer or an athletic trainer, strength and conditioning coach, and that was my first step. That's my passion. Let me see what I can find in that career path. So literally bought personal training textbooks. I went to Starbucks for 2-3 months in a row, studied the content, passed the test, and then I started working for free at Monmouth University as a strength and conditioning coach. What did that look like? A couple days a week, I'd wake up at 4:45, 5 a.m. I would drive straight down, get there about 7:30, just to work for free from 8 to 3 o'clock, being bossed around, moving weights around. It wasn't glorious, that's for sure. And then I would get off at 3 o'clock and I would drive Uber to make some cash. And in between that, I would work some odd jobs and burger shops and things like that to pay the bills.
No, it's a small world, and I got you by a couple years. I did the same thing when, I'm already practicing. I'm in healthcare 10 years. I took a volunteer coaching job at Monmouth University with Steph Gately, and before she had left to go to Fordham, and same thing. And I really didn't know what I was getting myself into because I went in as the hired gun, like a top trainer in the area. And I was starting to travel. I just had an opportunity to go out and meet Steve Nash with a good personal friend and whatnot. And my resume was building. And I'm like, you know what? If I really want to do this, I got to see what Division I looks like. And same thing. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm there for the 6 a.m. summer workouts. And what I didn't know, or I wasn't thinking about from my college playing days, she was a brand new coach. And my job was basically to be the hazing coach to see who was going to survive her.
Gotcha.
So here I am out on the track. You're a running guy, which we'll get into. I'm not a running guy. She gives me the first 15 minutes of the workout and I have them jogging like, 50%, 200, full out, back 200. Yep. These are basketball players. We're not used to running 400s, right?
Oh yeah, they don't like that.
They're looking at me. I got the 6'4" centers running. Everybody's running. And the relationship that I built with those kids, and I'm sure you probably have some great memories too, for the ones that survived, the ones that left, they went out broken. But the ones that made it, it was like junction boys, or girls for this matter.
Sure.
So tell me where you got into. Did you actually train at Lifetime before you made the evolution to where you're at now, in the position you're at now?
Yeah. So my first full-time training job was Lifetime.
Okay.
Like everyone else, I started training some friends and family and doing it on the side while I did some other jobs. And I made that decision at one point, like if I really wanted to make a career out of this, I had to go, all in.
All in.
You know. So the part-time stuff and the Venmoing me for workouts and things like that, it wasn't cutting it. I remember I walked into Lifetime in Westchester, New York, where I'm originally from, with a resume, a hard copy. That's how, like, I'm dating myself a little bit. You know, I didn't even apply online. I just dropped it off at the front desk. And they hired me, gave me an opportunity, and I worked there for about 2.5, 3 years before growing into an assistant training manager role. And then I grand opened our Bridgewater Club here in New Jersey as well. As an assistant manager, grew into the head manager and ran a team of 30 to 35 trainers, grew us to one of the top 3 revenue departments in the entire company, and then opened up this opportunity here for me to grow into a general manager role where I live in Monmouth County.
Love it. And that's what our Tough Love podcast, or my Tough Love podcast, is all about, is you had a vision. You started out, you thought Villanova, business, take the suit route.
Yeah.
And I'm dealing with my son right now as an athlete. And I said, whatever you're going to have that vision. And then when you got there, it's very easy to lose your path.
So easy.
Right? You're training, you know, with the girlfriend or when you were dating, this and that, and you get comfortable.
Sure.
But you never got comfortable. You kept climbing. How'd you stay hungry?
I mean, honestly, my circumstances made me hungry. I needed to pay my bills, right? I also have this, I fear mediocrity, I would say, like in everything I do. So I have this like innate competition with myself. And at one point, you know, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm 25, 26 years old, no real career path, not a huge savings, no idea what I want to do. And from there, it was just one of those things where I had to figure it out. And I think it was with competition with myself, and we'll get into this when I talk about running and competing and being a hybrid athlete. I fear failure, and that kind of drove me to figure it out. And when you say like having a vision, like I did have a vision, but it was just day to day. Like that vision changed a lot. So I kind of just relied on showing up every day, having one good day after another, and seeing where that could take me.
I like it. And let's not waste time. You know, it's funny. I was telling you, like, this is a new thing, right? Like, to date myself, it was you identified with, as you know, your background, I think was, basketball and baseball.
Yeah, basketball and baseball. Yeah.
And, now we have this genre called the hybrid athlete.
Yes.
Right. And it's a little bit of everything.
Sure.
You know, tell me about, as your background, obviously you were always athletic. I think you were a tremendous basketball player at New Rochelle.
Yeah, New Rochelle High School, yeah.
And, and very athletic. When did this switch come that you wanted to start doing more of the CrossFit or high rocks and the running?
That didn't start till COVID hit. Kind of forced, right, with the gym shutting down, and I still had the ability to do some workouts. I had some equipment in my gym and in my garage, but at that point, I was working out 5, 6, 7 days a week and doing the same, workouts with kettlebells and light weights were getting old. So that's when I started running. And our mutual friend Mo, we did this thing called the 4x4x48. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not. Catch me up.
It started by David Goggins. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Oh, absolutely. And
you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 2 days straight. And it's to raise money for awareness and charity. And I raised close to $20,000 for Alzheimer's, which is very close to my heart. I have some family members that deal with it. So that's what started my running. And I decided to do that 4x4x48 in February, and we ran it in April. So keep in mind, starting in February, I was running 3 miles and could barely finish. And so when I dove into that head first 2 months later, it was by far the most difficult thing I've ever done. And looking back now, I could probably do that tomorrow if I had to.
All the aches and pains.
I mean, literally, I remember finishing and crying and just being like, that was so grueling. No sleep. You're up, you have to do it every 4 hours. So midnight, 4 a.m., 8 a.m. And I hadn't run more than probably 6 to 8 miles in a day at that point. Now I just did 48 in 2 days. So that's what started it. And I think what it showed me is I'm capable of so much more. And that was just like the tip of the iceberg. So for me, it was like, oh, where can I take this? And then for me, I just love to work. And, you'll ask my coworkers here at Lifetime or, in my training sessions, I just love to be the hardest worker in the room. So from there, it was like, okay, I can run an 8-minute mile. Can I do 7? All right, can I get it down to 6? Now it's like I'm trying to run a sub 5-minute mile. So for me, it was the journey of where can I take this? How fast can I get? How much better can I get at this?
I like that. And, the thing about it is with the running, it is definitely you versus you. And you said that's kind of always been your thing.
Exactly.
I've watched, being in healthcare, I've treated some elite runners at Michigan, Stanford, Vanderbilt, a lot of Ivy League. And the one unique thing with all of them is how they literally are just racing against themselves, racing against the elements, racing against their emotions. And it's wild. I mean, you keep yourself in great shape. When you see the runners, especially a high school runner, they're way underweight, right? And the amount of mental fortitude they have to have because they don't understand nutrition. They're sitting in a chair for 6 to 7 hours a day. They don't understand recovery. They're just grinding, doing 30 miles a week, to just get in shape for the big races. And if they're at CBA, they're probably running 50 miles a week.
Yeah, 50, 60, 70 miles, yeah.
So how did you, it's funny because you were talking about that. You've run marathons now. You kind of look at everything. You almost threw the ultra conversation out there. You were really Goggins on me.
Yeah.
What is that? Why is that for the run? Why do you like that so much over picking up triathlon or cycling or swimming?
Yeah. I mean, so when I stopped playing sports, I got into lifting right away. I was doing 2 days at college, just bodybuilding splits, getting as big as I possibly could. That was more for aesthetic purposes, right, and strength purposes. And at a certain point, you're like, I don't know where else to go from here, right? I feel like I've maximized my potential in this realm. And for me, I started to also feel the effects of it. Like I wasn't moving quite as well. I had a bunch of aches and pains. I was for sure overtraining specifically with weights. And then it was never a mental battle. Like I'm always excited to lift weights, right? Coming to the gym's exciting. I'm rarely excited to run. That's what people don't realize. Like even though I run often and frequently, it's very rare I wake up at 6 a.m. and go, I can't wait to run these 10 miles, right? So the mental aspect of doing something I don't want to do and accomplishing in that, especially to start my day, the benefits are crazy. So for me, when I realized like the delayed gratification part of it, like I don't want to do this, but I'm going to get my butt up and I'm going to do it. When I started to get addicted to that a little bit, I think is when I started to see it kind of reflect in the rest of my life, my career, my job, my relationships. And that's really where I started to lean into it heavily.
I like that. And it's funny, I had the privilege of seeing David Goggins speak. And, I'd say, as a physical medicine, there was chiropractic, physical therapy, a lot of people in shape, but there were also a lot of people that weren't.
Sure.
And I don't think they expected David Goggins to say exactly what you said. And, all the people were like, as he said, self-proclaimed toughest man, hardest man in the world.
Sure.
Right. And so people are asking questions like, you must really love running. Mm-hmm. And
he doesn't love running.
It was so funny because he drops the F-bomb. He could use it as an adjective pronoun,
He sure
and
does.
He's like, I'm sitting there, we're like front and center. I'm listening to him, I'm locked in. And he's like, I fucking hate it. He's like, and that is exactly why I love it. Because if I'm tired, if I'm hurt, if I'm frustrated, if I'm sick, and he had major heart issues. I mean, he was running on broken feet, broken legs. And, that's a bit extreme, but there was that no quit. So it was funny. I could see it in your eyes. I'm like, oh, you got a little Goggins in you. You're like, all right,
just a little bit.
I don't feel like it. I'm going, Tell me this. Now you're in this setting, and I know we talked about it yesterday. One of the things that I think you take from sports, you were very competitive with basketball, right? How do you compete like in these hybrid events and whatnot to bring that back? Is there are there teams? Is it like me and you going against another team, or is it you versus everybody?
Sure. So I like to break out what I do in fitness in two realms. I have my running, which is me versus me. Like I did the New York City Marathon this past year, and my goal was a sub 3:15. And I trained for 16 weeks to that number, and I ran a 3:14. To the point where I'm running a race and I'm tracking every single mile, and I know like stopping for water or kissing my wife at mile 25 is going to cost me my goal, and I got to keep going. So that for me is obviously, I'm not trying to win a marathon. I'm not built for that. That's not going to happen in my lifetime, but I set those little micro goals for myself, and it's me versus me. Now, when it's High Rocks, that's where I get that competition back. It's trying to win. It's trying to beat the rest of the competitors. For those that don't know what High Rocks is, it's,
I was going to say, define it to the audience because it's new. It's like how it used to be Jim Jones, then CrossFit hit, and now this is a new version. So what is High Rocks? Define it.
It's a fitness race for everybody, and they say that in the sense that can everyone do it and finish it? No, but the movements are so that you can show up and you can physically do the movements, right? So with CrossFit, sometimes the movements are very difficult. They're technical. A barbell snatch, walking on your hands, handstand walk, right? No one can just show up and just do that. You have to practice those specific movements. So with High Rocks, it's a sled push, it's a sled pull, wall balls, burpee broad jumps, lunges, farmer's carry, and between all those exercises is a run, 1,000 meters. So it's 0.62 miles. right? So it's a mix of strength training and running, which is right up my alley at the moment. And you can either do it solo or you can do it in a doubles team as a team. So I've done both. Right now I'm competing with a good friend of mine as a doubles team, and we've been very competitive. We just came in second place in our age group in New York City. We qualified for the World Championships, which were in Nice, France. But they were a week after, and I just had a baby who's 6 weeks old, so that was a no-go for me. But we were able to push our world to next year. So we qualified for Worlds next year. We don't know where it's going to be, but we plan on going there, and the goal is to podium or win it. So in High Rocks, that's where I get my competition back. I'm showing up the day of, locked in, my headphones are in, I'm thinking about who's showing
Game
up.
day.
Oh yeah, you should see all the competitors that are showing up. No one's really talking to each other. You definitely have that sense of competition going on. And then as soon as that gun goes off, it's game time.
Love it. Now, it was funny because I saw some local athletes on there and we talked about this, and I'm not going to say any names.
Yeah, I know. But, right, exactly. Let's keep that private.
Yeah. But I have to say, I mean, I don't know, it was the heat, the elements, tell me about, like you were describing the 4x48 or whatever. Tell me how it goes where it's just tearing people's souls out, because those are some pretty fit people. So what's the workout look like? What's the pace? Or you have to go at your pace to get through whatever the rep count is in the shortest period of time.
So I'll break it down for you. It's 8 exercises, 8 runs. First one, you start off right out the gate with a 1,000-meter run. Then you go right into I'm in the pro division right now, so it's a little bit heavier weights, right around a 500-pound sled push. Then you go immediately into another run. Then you have a ski erg. So that, I don't know if you've used a ski erg machine before, but it's a cardio machine. Then you have a sled pull. After that, you have burpee broad jumps. Nobody likes doing burpees.
And how many, just out of curiosity, just torture the people?
I think it's
a distance?
Yeah, it's a distance.
So in other words, you're on a 50-yard line. However, you could hop. If you're a jumper, so if you get there quick and get it done, God bless, right?
80 meters. So just to give you a general idea, I mean, you're probably going for a solid 2 to 3, 4 minutes just doing burpees and jumping.
Wow.
Right after that, you have a row, farmer's carry, sandbag lunges with about 72 pounds on your back, and then you finish off with 100 wall balls with a 20-pound ball. And in between all those is the run, right? And just to give you an idea, I mean, I'm running those runs at about a 6:15 per mile pace. So by the end of it, I've run 5 miles at about close to a 6 minute per mile pace, and that's not even to win. Right now we're near the cusp of the top. We're competing, we're getting on the podium, but to really win those races, you got to be running 5:30 miles, and then going right into a 500-pound sled push. So I mean, it's all gas from the start. And that's where the mental aspect comes in. I mean, the hardest part of the race is the first 20 to 30 minutes because you're so exhausted the first 10 minutes and you're like, how am I going to finish this, right? And it's a lot of mind games with the other competitors. Who looks more tired? Are they going out too hot? There's some strategy involved?
Yeah.
But for me, I've done 7 now, I think. And every single time, the first 10 to 15 minutes, some of the thoughts in my mind are, why do I do this? This is my last one. This is for sure my last one. This hurts so bad. And then I get to halfway through and I kind of break through and I'm like, all right, I'm getting a second wind and I love this.
So it's kind of like life, right? I mean, yeah. So I love that analogy. I think we should take it there, that I think we could apply that to your time in Villanova business and then go into corporate. Yeah. And you made a pivot, right? You could have quit, like you said, you could have quit and stayed in that job and maybe look back 10 years later and go, wow, I quit.
Well, that's a great point because I think most people, they quit right before they have that breakthrough, right? Like, how do you know if you're about to make that breakthrough? So for me, let's say I'm in this race and I want to throw in the towel, right? Same thing could have happened in personal training. I could have said, hey, I want to be a manager and it's not happening fast enough. And maybe this just isn't the career path for me and I jump ship somewhere else. And I think in this day and age, you see a lot of that in our culture. It's like, if it's not working, let's see what else is out there. Let's try something different. And you have to go through some tough times and some adversity before you really break through. So if you don't give yourself the opportunity to do that, and I just feel like there's a lot of similarities between life and running and hybrid athletes, and that's why I feel like I'm so attracted to it.
100%. A little anecdotal story for that. I opened up an amazing facility, which you would have loved when you first started training. It was 15,000 square foot of balls to the wall, brand new turf, 50-yard running area, full perform bettered out. If it wasn't that, it was rogue. I mean, we had the assault bikes and I had the brilliant idea to open it like 4 days before COVID.
Wow. Tough timing.
And the only good thing about it was having, an 8th grader and a 6th grader at the time. was they had the biggest playroom probably in the United States.
Yeah.
That they could go and have a play date in a huge area where we could create social distancing.
And you were probably allowed to get your own workouts in, which is nice.
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah, well, for me, that's actually, it's funny. You said that. That's where, and I was telling you about my injury. I got hurt. And I had fractured my lower back, and I've had it was rough. And from being a professional basketball player, professional trainer,
sure,
and doing all the workouts, and with every kid, every rep, I always felt my job, and I wasn't doing my job if I couldn't take Alex and put him on the court and take him through every rep.
Yep.
And right when I could tell you were tired, be in your face, and not that coach like old school. And I loved the Bobby Knight, but I was never that coach. I was a coach that said, hey, that guy you're playing against, he did 2 more reps and he felt like shit too. Suck it up. Let's get it done. And when I got hurt, I've always been piss and vinegar. And I said, I'm going to get past this. And ran out stem cells, PRP, all the, everything. I mean, my wife and I was blessed to have her, during that time. She was literally my, she was my Uber. She was my nurse. She was, the 24/7, probably one of the darkest times. And that's why I fell in love with David Goggins, is to be able to get inside of that negativity. I didn't sleep for 91 days. I went from 215, 217 pounds. And how your body weight don't change. I've been the same size forever. And I hit like 187 pounds at 6'3". And I'm not a runner,
I mean, let's talk about that for a second, because I'm putting myself in I remember I broke my finger in college and I couldn't work out with my left hand for a little bit. And mentally, it was challenging for me, right? I was depressed at certain times and I was frustrated. How did this happen? Why did this happen? And that was just in college and a broken finger. Right now, fast forward to you opening up a business, COVID, you have a family to provide for. And then you have your own fitness goals and you've been a great athlete your entire life. And now you can't do a lot of that stuff. I mean, how did you overcome that yourself?
You know what? It was amazing. I've never been one for really reading for, all my education, all my degrees. Yes, I was disciplined. I locked in. I had to get spiritual because during that 91 days, and just imagine you ran that 4x48 or whatever, right? And, after about the second week, I realized no one was coming. And I had weeks to go, which I had no idea when the end date was, because I would lay down, I'd fall asleep. I'd be asleep for like 1 hour. I'd pop up, I'd have pain, or I just had straight insomnia, and I'd be up till 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's when, and I think a lot of the athletes that I enjoy watching that are probably more your age than my age, when we were kids, it was always suck it up as a 50-year-old male. It was, you're fine, you don't need therapy, you don't need to talk to somebody, you need a journal, you go, right? And I needed to journal. I had to go back to my roots of the 5, 6, 7, 10,000 kids I got to work with, that how I brought them back from injuries, whether in the velocity performance in sports rehab, rehabbing an ACL or, a back surgery or whatever it was, getting back. And I would take a knee with them and say, hey guys, just remember, and the injury that I had right before COVID, that wasn't my worst. I was paralyzed when I was your age. I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. I fractured my skull. I broke my back. I had a knee surgery that put me out for 12 weeks. And I have never once thought about quitting. So just so we're on the same page, if you're going to stay with me and we're going to walk that walk, just know one thing. This is a no quit zone.
I mean, that's a part of what probably made you great at your job. And what you did is you can relate to them and you've been through it. You've done it, right? So that for me, being as a personal trainer or general manager managing people, like I can't tell you how to do something or if I haven't walked the walk myself, right? So I think some of that adversity in the moment, it's extremely tough, right? Let's be honest, we don't want to go back there. You would never want to go back to that time in your life. But what did it teach you, and how much more resilient are you now? And when you encounter little obstacles or issues, or they're insignificant at this point, right?
You smile at it, and that's the one thing I try to tell like younger guys. I was saying, I love that you said like your role as a GM here is to connect the dots and put people together.
Yep.
When I started Tough Love, this podcast, I started meeting all these people, and I guess forever I always felt like Peter Pan because I didn't think I was going to age. Up until 45, I could dunk. I could run like a deer. I'd go into a men's league and drop 50. And I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
And then literally the world just stopped. That injury was like, I'm not getting better.
Yeah.
But the one thing about it was like enough of the pity party. and that was one thing I'll never forget it. I was down at LBI, and I used to love doing like me versus me, like you with the running. I would get on the edge of the water with my fat boy, thick tire bike, and I would run sprint intervals the length of Beach Haven down in LBI. And people look at me and they're like, what is this nut doing? And I was petrified to touch my knees, let alone like, this is how bad I was. I mean, it was just mind blowing to me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go on the bike.
Yeah.
On the beach, go at it. And if I'm dying, I'm dying anyway. So at least I'm going to die doing something I love.
Sure.
And of course I had to gear up on the bike and make it a little bit easier. But when I got done, I looked out into that ocean and was just watching the birds. And I think I saw some dolphins cut the water. And I'm like, thank God. Like, it was so nice to be home in that mental space that I've been in my head. Like when you're running and you're looking out, you're thinking and you're going through you're going through your steps of what you got to do and whatnot.
Yep. And
I hadn't been in that place for so long that I'm like, you know what? This time around, the back nine, if you will, hitting 50 this year.
Sure.
My job is to inspire people and to push people and say, hey, listen, I was there. And the other thing I learned is walk in and sit next to somebody and they said, hey man, I got pancreatic cancer and I'm in healthcare. And you go, wow, that's a real deal.
Yeah.
Or right now I put myself in a gym setting. I was telling you, I'm working out alongside, it's a supplement company I work with Rich Tuma, and he's got this RTN supplement company. I said, you know what, I'm going to jump in. I want to put my hand in that. It's something I've always told patients to do. But he's got a legendary, iconic goat that went head to head. He worked out with Arnold Schwarzenegger for years by the name of Bill Grant.
Wow.
78 years old. And he's got some, as you were saying, you get behind Alzheimer's. And my aunt is dealing with that right now. My wife's really closest aunt. And he's got a little dementia. And works out. My man is a beast at 78. He's on the leg press for a set of 100, gets up, jumps in the adductor, he's curling. I mean, and then he'll come over, and then all of a sudden he's gone. And then he pops back in. And I laughed because I said, you know what? He's here. And it's probably one of the best spiritual, like, dopamine drops for me, because I look at it and I go, there are so many people that would be in that corner there and just letting themselves fall apart. He's in there, and I hear him going back, and I didn't realize he put the swag, even more than Arnold, this and that. I started Googling him, and like, he had a show. He was the first guy interviewing other bodybuilders. Like, he put the swag in being a bodybuilder.
Sure.
And I'm like, it's such a blessing. And I think that comes with wisdom of age. I probably would have never thought this at 30, 35, in your age range.
For sure.
And I'm staring at this man. I go, I'm not that far off there. And he literally said it to me today. And I was in the middle of a superset. This guy was killing me. I'm not used to these crazy rep ranges of high 25, volume, 35, 40. And I'm dying. And he looks over and he goes, if it was easy, this gym would be filled. Suck it up. Right. And meanwhile, he just was somewhere completely in a different part of the world. And I'm like, and then boom, he's locked in. I go, let's go.
That's all it takes sometimes. I mean, there's some really good points in there. First, you going back to that moment when you were by the water at the bike and, what was going through your head. For me, how many times a day right now do you have a chance to really sit with your own thoughts, right? Like, it's pretty rare. So people laugh about this all the time, but I run sometimes with no music. It depends on the mood I'm in. I'll either do music, an audiobook, a podcast, or nothing, right? Depending on what I need. But when I'm lifting, I'm usually listening to music, kind of trying not to think. I'm just lifting the weights, picking them up, putting them back down. When I run, I'm doing all my thinking. I'm thinking about what I need to accomplish. Where are my goals? I'm thinking about my family and what I need to do for them. And then I'm also thinking about, this place now. So when I run a meeting every Wednesday, I have my leadership meeting with all my managers. That entire deck, that entire PowerPoint is created on a 10-mile run in my head, right? Sometimes I even have to stop and put voice notes into my phone or write it down in my notepad so I don't forget it. And that's another thing that got me really hooked on running is it's not just, a lot of people think, oh, do I have to run to lose weight or drop body fat? That has never been a reason why I ran. It's been because it's hard and it's my virtual office. Exactly. Yeah. So I get to kind of kill two birds with one stone there. When I don't have a lot of time, now I can be efficient working out and I can do my mental, stuff that I need to do. And the last piece I want to talk about is, my support system. So I told you a little bit yesterday about my father, my mom, my now wife, how supportive they were. And my parents, and they'll laugh about this a little bit too, kind of their roles were reversed. When I quit my job, my mom was a little bit more of the rational one that was like, what are you doing? You have bills to pay. You can't quit your job without another job lined up. Like, not everyone's going to love their job. You kind of just have to do it, right? Which I could respect, but my father, who's a family therapist and a sports psychologist, actually, so he's worked with Olympic athletes. He's now with St. John's and Iona College, and he works with their athletes. And that's a career path that didn't really exist that long ago, right?
I was going to say,
he kind of paved the way for that. He kind of just went in and showed the value of it, and now has a role doing that at a really high level. So he's the one that would be like, let's sit down, let's process it, let's talk about it. He taught me how to meditate when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I've done that once or twice a day since then. So I was set up for success with those resources. I had a really good foundation. And I knew that I had them to fall back on, in a sense. I didn't look at it that way financially, but support-wise, I knew I had them. And I think that made it a little bit easier for me to make that jump. But having said that, there was this fear of disappointing them or disappointing, my wife. And I don't want to put her in a position where I can't provide for them, right? So there was a point where it really was, I have to make this work. I have to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that happened sooner rather than later. And I think the running and the hybrid stuff only just amplified that. And I have that same mentality with that I do with kind of what I do here. And I take those lessons that I learn and I apply them.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was funny. I said this to you on the call yesterday. What I'm doing now is I almost look at it like, we need to be our own collective, right? Or as Mo says from Athletic Freak, a community.
Yeah.
And I see young bucks like you where I've been there, done that, and had a huge community. Like, I mean, half the people that are members here, I've probably either treated or trained their kids, and now their kids are your age or older with multiple little ones running around.
Sure.
And the one thing that I was thinking about is, how do we what's your vision to, not to say this isn't enough, because I could see you literally running lifetime across the country. I could see you being that guy. I ran into a guy that ran all the New York sports clubs at a good friend's wife's funeral. And when New York Sports Club was the gym.
That's where I started. That was my first gym.
Yeah. And he ran the entire East Coast. And it was a huge paying job. It was busy, right? Because you're opening gyms, you're on location, I guess, for X amount of weeks. What do you see with like the social media, and now that everything's modern, how would you see a vision if we're out on a run? I'd probably be biking next to you on the electric bike while you're running, but what would you be going through your head if you had to say, Alex's next vision within this, right? Because I own Velocity Performance and Sports Rehab, right? Director, I see a ton of patients a week, yet I still make time for my podcast.
Yeah.
I coach.
Sure.
I run podcasts all over the country, and I have a mastermind group starting to open. What's the vision?
Yeah, I think right now the vision is I am, there's only so much I can do at one time, right? So with a newborn, this new role, and then my own health and fitness goals and competing, right? The next step is kind of just maximizing my potential in all of those buckets right now. And when you look at social media, like, I haven't leaned into it too heavily at the moment because I know it takes time and effort and energy to do it the right way, right? I don't want to be that guy that's just propping his phone up against a water bottle and taking videos, right? Like, look at this production that you guys are doing. It takes a team, and it takes thought, and it takes time, and it takes money and all that stuff. And I think that's in my future when I start to collab with the right people. And I've already started to do that by meeting you and some other people that we mentioned yesterday. But I'm kind of letting it happen naturally. I do think I need to start putting myself out there a little bit more and more content, which is absolutely a fact. It's just one of those things that as I get a little bit closer to some financial freedom, and now that I'm in this role, when you're a trainer, you're on other people's schedule, right?
Yeah.
And I'm here all the time, and I'm a workhorse, but at the same time, it does give me a little bit more time back in picking and choosing when and where I want to be, right? So I'm starting to see that come back into my life and have the ability to decide, all right, like, what's my next thing that I want to lean into? And what I've done right now with social media really heavily is I've made sure that the people that I see every single day on my timeline are moving in the same direction as me. So, there became a time where I was looking and I was kind of just going through everyone's posts being like, I'm jealous that person on vacation, or how'd they just buy that house? I know their job doesn't pay that well. Like, having these negative thoughts in my head, like comparing myself to them, right? And this was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And now I'm at a place where, like, I'm rooting for everyone on my timeline. You PR'd amazing. You bought a house. Oh, that's awesome, right? That's truly how I feel. So when you use social media for that, I think it's the first good step in the right direction, because I'm not scared to put out content. Is someone going to think this is stupid? Is someone going to hate on it, right? Like, I know the people that follow me are supporting me, and if not, that's okay too. But I'm in a good place mentally with that side of things, and I think that's the first step for me starting to, like, really put myself out there.
I love that. And it's funny, we invest a huge amount of money into the social media. And, one of the biggest things that I've said as a young man, as my father was, a standing military guy, very strict, and it was always consistency.
Yeah.
Or for him, it was, if you say you're going to do it, get it done.
For sure. Well,
that's and for me, I translated, hey, consistency is the key. Or if not now, when?
Yeah.
Right.
And,
people are always reaching out. They're like, man, you're so consistent with the workouts and it's amazing. I'm seeing your progression. You're really starting to, take, catch fire. And I said, you know what? Like sometimes I'm tired, or at 50, I thought I'd get injuries at your age, from overtraining or playing in a men's league, get hurt, twist an ankle. But then I'm thinking, great Einstein, because guess what? Now you got to see patients and you got to work and you got to train tomorrow.
Oh, that happened to me as a personal trainer. I was throwing out my back left and right. I was playing, when I was first a trainer, competitive flag football, competitive basketball, softball. And I was showing up late because I was coming straight from work. I remember I played softball. I sprinted down the first baseline, pulled my hamstring. Next day I'm at work limping around trying to show them how to do an RDL. I can't even, do it for them.
You can't move. Right. Yeah, been there.
So I've been there. And that's where I really started to redesign my workout program and what I can and can't do. But to your point, I do have a little bit of that procrastination in me where it's like, I'll wait for the right time. And that's something that it's been a fault of mine in the past. And I think I'm getting to a place now where it's like, just do it. Like,
you know what, the one thing I would tell you, give you a pearl, I got you by a couple years. It's what I told you yesterday. I see this relationship. Like, I love mentoring. When I got into business, I was blessed to have guys like, Victor Rollo, that's a local restaurateur that is just a beast. And he put me right around your age, literally in touch with everybody. They came in to treat, this is the guy. And, that's the kind of relationship I have. But by the way, while we were working out, and probably one of the bonds that we'll always have was when I had my knee surgery, it was a microfracture repair at the time. It was like your dad being a sports psychologist. It was one of those things where you're like, oh, wow, he had that.
Yeah.
And when you look at the stats, being a basketball player, there weren't a lot of guys that came back from it. I was blessed because the former CEO of the New Jersey Nets and I was Googling everything almost where I was going back to like the library to look up. Jason Kidd was one of the few Hall of Fame basketball players who since had a hip replacement and everything else. But he came back and made back to, play in the league with the microfracture repair.
Oh, wow.
Where like Amari Stoudemire and a bunch of other guys, CeCe Bafia, they didn't come back, and here I'm in Dr. O'Connor mode. Now I'm like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to come back.
Yeah.
And I was blessed because Victor's more like a hybrid athlete. If he was, 30 something, we went in the pool every day. And we ran, and at first it wasn't a run. It was a limp. It was like both of us got shot without the blood in the water. And by the end, when we were both clear to go back, and he had snapped his femur and had, pins all the way down the leg, and my knee was rebuilt. And the funny thing about it was, at the end, we were literally driving the swimmers nuts because we were outrunning them in the water with no buoyancy belts other than having to put the aqua socks on because we were ripping our feet off from running so fast in the water. And when I got back on the basketball court, it was like probably first day you were like, I'm no longer in the suit at work. It was like freedom. I was like, I remember the tear going down my cheek, and I'll never forget it. There was one of the moms was a PA, and she looked at me, and it was almost like looking at her, and I could see my mom in her eyes, and she goes, you got it, Doc.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, and I looked back and I said, you know what? I want to be that for these young guys. I want to pull them in, and I know I can't do what I once could do, but I could throw down pretty damn good, and I'm like, when I'm like, especially I'm up here and it's a little bit different from gym of going to a powerhouse or going to, iron or whatever. But you know what, when you come in and you kind of set the tone, you start going hard, other people start going, they start coming up like, oh, you're working hard. I'm like, is there any other way?
Yeah. You should see, I mean, especially when I'm doing my high rocks training, I got to take a mop upstairs and do the fitness floor after, but I would have people naturally, and I don't work out with a lot of people typically. Just, I don't know if it's selfish or not, but I know what I want to do. I have a program I want to follow, and if someone wants to jump in and try and keep up, that's great, but I'm going to kind of follow my program. But we created a culture at my last club at Bridgewater. We had 20 people on a Saturday doing my workout. Now, I have two clients of mine. They're 60 plus. They just flew to Nice, France to do the 60 plus high rocks. They weren't runners until a year or two ago. They never in their wildest dreams imagined they would do that, right? And being able to have that influence on them, that wasn't even my goal, but it just kind of happened by accident. And I've seen that happen a little bit more, and that's where it gets the wheel spinning. Like, forget about the monetary benefit of it. Like, there's other people that could benefit from, some of my content or some of my stories or,
Never lose sight of that.
Yeah.
I didn't have social media when I was your age, or it wasn't like it is now. I look back at all the kids that see me now that are adults at your age, older, and say, thank you so much. you taught me so much about the importance of, I loved having a VersaClimb for anyone who knew what it was. And for me to get in shape, I would literally go assault bike, VersaClimber, erg. And if people don't know what that is, they're like, and then they get on it. That hurts a little bit, leaves a mark. But I'll tell you, what I loved hearing right there, the pearl was taking those people and someone looking saying, hey, if it wasn't for Alex pushing us to get a little taste of what he does at that elite level, we never believed in ourselves. And that's the power of you. That's going to be your special. That's your superpower right there.
I think when I look at some of the impacts I've had on people, and I have even friends that are just at a stage of life where they're like, I got to get in shape, right? Like, I'm a father now, I'm 30, I'm gaining weight, and it could be as small as like, I need to lose 20, 30 pounds, right? And at this stage of life, it's just not that simple anymore, right? And just being that constant motivation, I'm checking in with them, I'm seeing how they're doing, I'm going for a run with them if they need that. But then seeing fast forward, I just get the ball rolling and then they run with it. I have a friend that comes to mind right now. He's down close to 30, 40 pounds. He just did his first high rocks. When I did the 4x4x48, he jumped in for 20 of them and he had never run more than like 3 miles. And just that ability to level up because they see that I'm doing that is just an added benefit that I never really like thought of when I put out some content. So for me, I'm at a place now where I need to stop procrastinating around some of that stuff and figure out, how I can impact more people. And social media, that's what you do, right? Like my feed, I have people that I've never met that have motivated me in some ways that they'll never know, right? Yeah, and some days I'll be like, I'm gonna skip my workout today, or instead of doing 10, maybe I'll just do 5 miles. And I see someone that just ran 20 and I'm like, all right, now I got to do 10. Maybe I got to do 20, right? So just having the right circle. That's
dependent on you. I saw you and you're like, oh.
That's how I operate, right? So if I didn't want that, I'd unfollow all of them and I'd follow some of my friends that are going out partying instead, right?
Yeah.
But, I try and take that competitive nature and use it for a positive, right?
100%. I just got into, these guys are like right in between our age. And I was laughing because, like if I'm in the gym with a hat on and I got a good pump, people are like, how old are you? Then all of a sudden I'm like, my son's your age, And I chuckled because, what I started realizing is I love seeing a guy that's 60. We have a friend, Carl, that's mid 60s. This guy is built like a brick shit house. And, I'm always complimenting him. He's going to hear this and I'll put it on with the timestamp. Like, Carl, I'll give you a shout out, brother. Cause I'm telling you, he walks in, our medical staff loves him. Guy looks like I literally could sit here and go, how old is he? Like just ridiculous. But the moral of the story is you need that. Mm-hmm. In your culture, probably the best gift you could have is not having the ego to appreciate another athlete to inspire you when you're not feeling like doing it. Or you want to level up and you're like, you know what? That guy's not quitting, And I always go back to like people were laughing. I was in the gym today and I was playing, I'm working out and I'm getting crushed. So he's like, you want to play your music? And I went right to Spotify. I played 10 minutes Kobe, 10 minutes The Rock, 10 minutes Arnold,
throw Goggins
10 minutes
in there.
Goggins. And he's looking, he goes, dude, you're going. I go, oh, I'm in the dark place right now. I don't want to talk. Like, I just want to get through it.
Yeah.
Like when I feel that 6 rep and I want to quit, I'm like,
well, who's to say you can't be that next Goggins and be that someone, I got to put on John, right? Like, get me through this workout.
And that's really been the thing is like, I wish that I was mic'd up back when I had all the kids. And I'm like, you know what? Now I might not be able to be that guy, but if I can motivate them in my words and, and be out there a little bit where they're like, hey, you know what? He's not competing at this, and this, but his words are fire.
Yeah.
And when you hear them and it draws them and it draws you in to say, why not? Why not today? Why not right now?
Yeah. I mean, when you see those little clips now on Instagram, they'll take a full podcast and dumb it down to 30 seconds of their best content, right? And I mean, I've taken so many of those messages and like someone like Nick Bear, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but it's BPN and follow his content. And he'll say just something that resonates so strongly with me that it's going immediately in my PowerPoint and the rest of my team is going to hear it, right? And now for me, the last step of that is I have a son now. He's 6 weeks old. His name is Nico. And you talk about influencing other people. And I know I'm on display for him every single day, right? So what kind of father do I want to be? I grew up watching my dad go for runs. He ran 9 New York City marathons. And he set a really good example for me. I want to be that person that, my son looks at and says, Dad, I want to go for a run or I want to go for a workout. And that's also why I really appreciate and love Lifetime. He's going to grow up in here. We have the Kids Academy. He's already been here once. He's going to grow up coming to Lifetime and in this culture. And it's okay if he doesn't want to be an athlete or he doesn't want to pursue that in the future, but he's going to live a healthy way of life and a healthy lifestyle. And I'm going to be a big reason why he does that.
I love it. You know what I think? we're going to close it on that. But to the audience, whenever you can have a young leader here that gets it, and a huge shout out to your parents, hearing the foundation that came underneath you for having two amazing parents like mine, were awesome throughout my illnesses and sports and everything. It's a huge driving force.
It is.
Because the first thing, saying your mom being a little bit different, like the roles and this and that, and all the way through, it makes my heart smile for all the times that I would watch parents interact in the training. You had the adults, I had their kids.
Sure.
And if I'm sitting here looking back and talking to your parents, I'd be like, hey guys, you did a great job.
They crushed it.
So, but listen, we got more to come.
Yeah,
we are definitely catching a fitness workout. You're going to go to my speed. If I go to your speed, you're going to put me in cardiac arrest.
Fair enough,
But
man.
we're definitely going to catch a workout. I want to get to that honey farm thing. Well, that's for another podcast.
We'll get there.
But love what you guys are creating here. Love to be a part of it. I'm here a couple days a week now working out, and just love this place. So, I think what you got going on, there's going to be more podcasts to come, and
Appreciate that.
Look forward to it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And the last piece of that is Lifetime is what brought us together, right? I know Mo and me and Mo met at Lifetime, and the last piece of, this big corporate gym, right? We have our own culture and our own community as well too, and that's what I love about Lifetime is it brings like-minded people together. I meet so many people here that I create relationships with, and meeting you, and where's that going to end in a couple of years? Who knows? But I would never have met you in the first place if I wasn't, in these doors. So I think Lifetime has opened up not just a career for me, but like a ton of different relationships that have kind of compounded, and I'm excited to see, where this can go in the future.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. Today's guest, Alex Armiento, was absolutely spectacular. The best gift you could give is sharing this podcast when it hits. This young man is fantastic. Congratulations to your newborn son.
Thanks so much.
We're wishing you many, many, many success in the future. All right, guys, thank you so much.